A magical girl was so cute that an evil officer defected on the spot. Suddenly, a huge monster appeared in the city, and bystanders thought it was a movie scene, ready to post on TikTok. No one noticed a mascot resembling Kyubi climbing onto the shoulder of a white-haired girl. "Works here, Byakuya," it said. Yet another girl tricked into becoming a magical girl by a mascot. Byakuya pulled off her hair tie to transform, enduring a shameful close-up transformation, and ended up in a cute form, swiftly defeating the monster and confronting the evil strategist, vowing to stop his misdeeds. When strategist Mira saw Byakuya, his glasses shattered. Love at first sight. Due to the failed mission, Mira faced pressure from colleagues back home. Despite almost defecting himself, he insisted, "I wasn't charmed by that magical girl. I pretended to be mesmerized as part of my plan. Stop talking. I have my own pace." Days later, he met Byakuya again, determined to give her a gift. "Dude, you're not even pretending anymore," remarked a colleague. Byakuya happily accepted, and they even shared cake in a pavilion. She praised Mr. Mira's generosity, making him experience a real heart flutter. Mira, from an evil elite family and second in command to the evil king, realized his life was in chaos after meeting Byakuya. It must be her plot. Seeing Mira clutching his chest, Byakuya tenderly checked his temperature. After calming down, Mira wondered why Byakuya so easily accepted a gift from an enemy. Byakuya then shared her sad life story. She's been drinking only water all week. Since high school, Byakuya lived alone, working part-time and helping at an orphanage, too busy to eat, savoring the joy of saving money. Mira, moved to tears, immediately offered her another piece of cake and advised her to eat well. After all, defeating an unwell magical girl would disgrace their evil organization. Byakuya thought Mr. Mira was really kind. "Then, I'll send you a year's supply of rice," Mira responded. Then, another fruitless return to his office. Thinking of Byakuya's behavior when alone with him, Mira immediately threw a fit. After the fit, he reflected on himself. "I am the right hand of the evil king. I must investigate this enemy magical girl." He said this, but ended up ordering a girl's favorite fresh cheesecake. Eager, he brought it to Byakuya the next day. However, Byakuya collapsed because she was too busy to sleep. Mira couldn't help but ask why she pushed herself so hard. Byakuya then shared her tragic story. The orphanage she grew up in was about to be seized by land developers. At that moment, the evil mascot appeared, offering her two choices: become a magical girl to save the world and earn money, or make money through unsavory means. Byakuya naturally chose the first option, only to later discover the mascot was in cahoots with the developers. Indeed, mascots these days are no good, even worse than Kyubey. After resting, Byakuya regained some strength. Mira, however, didn't want her to continue being a magical girl. Byakuya refused to quit this part-time job. "If someone has to do it, let it be me," she said. Most importantly, she met Mr. Strategist because of this job. Mira could only release his excitement by wildly punching a tree. "No, it's too cute," he exclaimed. He questioned Byakuya's motives and handed her a black card saying, "Take this. Will this do?" Still, he hoped Byakuya would reconsider not being a magical girl, as they would be enemies next time they met. And an arch-enemy cannot become a wife. Back home, Mira reflected again, knowing well that his reflection would only lead to buying another exquisite fruit tart that any girl would love. A high-ranking official of an evil organization uses his position to spy on a magical girl. Mira savors Byakuya's photos on his computer, but is interrupted by a subordinate offering tea and assistance in defeating the magical girl. Mira refuses without hesitation, as the magical girl is his alone. In a dark alley, a shady transaction is actually Mira buying desserts for Byakuya, who is late due to her late work shifts. She eagerly takes a bite of the pudding Mira hands her, instantly delighted, making Mira tremble with affection. Curious, he asks Byakuya how many jobs she has, and she indicates more than she can count on her fingers, with only the convenience store being a long-term job. Mira asks her to demonstrate her customer service, and Byakuya, holding the pudding, asks if he wants the bento heated. Her charming eyes melt Mira's heart, and he accidentally breaks the teapot. Then Mira requests Byakuya to talk to him in her magical girl persona. She transforms and descends in her magical girl dress, looking like a goddess to Mira, who immediately pulls out his camera for another shot. Worried Byakuya might tire of desserts, Mira invites her for lunch next time, forgetting their rivalry. Noticing his scorched sleeve, Byakuya offers to mend it. Shocked, Mira thinks it's a marriage proposal since such tasks are typically reserved for spouses, but Byakuya simply mentions her skill in mending. As Byakuya mends his clothes, she shares that she uses repaired old clothes as homeware. Mira, moved, offers to buy her new clothes with his black card. Byakuya refuses, explaining her money is managed by a creature that also arranges her jobs, and even made her business cards. Mira is appalled to find she's been sent to escort services by this creature. Byakuya finishes sewing a flower on Mira's sleeve, feeling her job as a magical girl isn't as hard as it seems, especially with such a gentle enemy strategist. Mira stubbornly maintains it's all for their dignity, leading to the rhetorical question, what dignity do you have left now? Back at the evil organization, Mira is welcomed by his subordinates lining up. Everyone noticed the patch on his sleeve, stirring emotions within. Staring at them, Mira made them stand at attention immediately. What about the patch? Do you have one? However, Mira started to reflect on his actions, realizing that he couldn't set a good example for his subordinates if he continued this way. After all, he was supposed to be a model of evil. With tears, he sealed the clothes away in a closet. The next day, he led his subordinates to invade Earth, spreading slime wildly in the sky while checking on their work. He was relieved not to be affected by strange emotions today, but then he saw Byakuya bound by slime. Overwhelmed and unable to resist, Byakuya was also struggling, about to be defiled by the slime. Mira used a powerful move to eliminate the slime he had released himself, and gently landed with Byakuya in his arms. Seeing Byakuya covered in slime, Mira felt like he was going to explode. Despite releasing the monster himself, he couldn't help but save her. Mira then draped his coat over Byakuya, who commented, "The coat is so warm," which inadvertently triggered another powerful reaction from Mira. He thought she was using this tactic to make him lose his will to fight, but it was incredibly effective. Moreover, Mira now knew where Byakuya lived. Byakuya was truly grateful and comforted that he kept wearing the clothes she had mended. Although he had planned to change into new ones once home, Mira stubbornly said it wasn't necessary this time. Byakuya thought to herself that the strategist was indeed gentle, and said, "Goodbye, gentle evil strategist." Mira, with a bittersweet expression, replied, "Goodbye, magical girl." As soon as Byakuya got home, she heard the creature's voice. "Yo, Byakuya, that coat you're wearing is very classy." Meanwhile, Mira began sorting information about Byakuya, but all he managed to print was Byakuya's name. Mira's obsession with magical girls has spread to other leaders of the evil organization. During a leadership meeting, they questioned Mira about it. Mira assured them not to worry, as everything was going according to plan. While speaking, he received a call. The others felt he was reliable and saw him as a brilliant and ruthless strategist within the organization. Unknown to them, Mira was discussing which steak to send to Byakuya with the waiter on the phone. Mira, no longer satisfied with just sending food, also brought Byakuya a bouquet of roses. In return, Byakuya gave him a handmade artificial flower. Mira was worried about her heavy workload, but her kindness deeply moved Byakuya, who couldn't stop staring at her, making Mira tremble with excitement. Unbeknownst to him, Byakuya was looking forward to seeing Mira again. Meanwhile, at home, a little creature was furiously typing on a computer after finishing a beer can. Byakuya looked over and saw a video of her last battle with a slime, featuring a magical girl tightly bound by tentacles. On another occasion, Mira's colleagues invited him to a bar, but he was fixated on the flower Byakuya had given him, worried that the little creature might deceive her. Suddenly, he saw Byakuya sitting next to him, pouring him a drink. Surprisingly, the magical girl seemed to be accompanying him for drinks. Byakuya felt uneasy seeing her distressed appearance. Mira took her out, gave her his coat, and Byakuya told him she felt like she was being made into an adult video to be sold. This statement made Mira's eyes emit a terrifying red glow, and the surroundings seemed to collapse. Byakuya urged him to calm down. Mira wanted the little creature to understand how terrifying it is to oppose the evil organization. He took Byakuya home, listed the creature's misdeeds, and the creature lit a cigarette, claiming to be a guide for magical girls. It stood up, clearly hiding someone inside its form. The creature was arrogant. Pulling Byakuya close, and claiming all her glory as a magical girl, and her earnings were his. Even claiming Byakuya herself, but she had to remain pure for now. Before it could finish, Mira grabbed it by the head. However, such creatures do not understand the concept of death, and it declared it would always haunt Byakuya. Mira decided to report to his superiors. Byakuya, grateful for being saved again by Mira, invited him to stay for dinner. Mira instantly crushed his phone. It was a meal cooked by Byakuya herself. He looked forward to what she would cook for him, and it turned out to be the premium steak he had given her. Byakuya was relieved to see Mira enjoy the meal, as he hadn't eaten during their previous date, leading her to think he might not be able to eat. Mira then shared that his mother used to cook for him as a child, to which Byakuya remarked what a good mother she was. This led her to share her experiences growing up in an orphanage, which made Mira feel even more sympathetic, wishing he could support her fully. After a satisfying meal, Mira prepared to leave. Byakuya said she would send his coat to the dry cleaners, but Mira, not wanting her to spend the money, wore it himself. Byakuya blushed, seeing Mira in his coat, as she was used to seeing him in it every day. Mira took off the coat and tried to give it back, but Byakuya refused. After Mira left, Byakuya couldn't help but hope they would meet again the next day. Meanwhile, Mira received bad news. A not-so-bright blonde colleague had been assigned to assist him in combating magical girls. Mira thought to himself that the magical girl was his alone, wondering if he should eliminate this new colleague first. A third party has appeared between Mira and Byakuya. Due to the slow progress in the task to subdue the magical girl, the boss assigned a golden retriever to help Mira. Fullheart, born into nobility, has known Mira for a long time. He doesn't seem very bright, and still believes Mira is the cruel strategist feared by even his own allies. How could he possibly be charmed by an enemy girl? At that moment, Mira called Fullheart's name and threw a ball for him to fetch, treating him like a dog. Soon it was time for Mira and Byakuya's scheduled meeting. Fullheart hid in the bushes to watch. Mira thought he was sent by the evil king to spy on her. She decided she must not be soft-hearted this time. But the next second, seeing Byakuya running towards her, she couldn't help but be moved, especially when Byakuya said he ran because he wanted to see her sooner. Mira felt the same way. Meanwhile, the big, dumb dog in the bushes watched them with wise eyes. Mira quickly explained this was a battle strategy, to treat her kindly to lower her guard. Fullheart admired Mira's cunning. To avoid being distracted by Byakuya, Mira tried to look away but struggled even more. She tricked Fullheart into believing that magical girls' eyes could release special powers. The next moment, Byakuya pulled out a homemade lunchbox. Mira told Fullheart it must be poisoned. However, facing Byakuya's care, he couldn't resist and started eating noisily. Fullheart was shocked, recalling the once cold-hearted Mira, who now finished the supposedly poisoned lunch, claiming it was merely spices for humans. Having watched the entire date, Fullheart thought it was a fierce battle. It seemed all the battles Mira had fought were so tough that he wanted to join the next one. He asked Mira to introduce him to Byakuya, nearly getting killed on the spot by his colleagues. Despite this, the next day Mira still took Fullheart to meet Byakuya, warning him not to touch the magical girl, or he would be killed. Mira introduced Fullheart to Byakuya, who thanked Mr. Mira for his care. Mira was so touched he knocked on a tree adorably. Fullheart politely tried to shake hands with Byakuya, but was stopped by Mira. In a private conversation, Mira tricked Fullheart into believing that touching a magical girl would dissolve his body, and Fullheart believed it. Later, Fullheart was repeatedly reminded and watched as Mira gave Byakuya a piece of cake. Mira claimed it was poisoned, so he forbade him from eating it. Fullheart closely watched Byakuya's piece of cake. Byakuya tried to share it with him, but Mira told her not to bother about others and then wiped a crumb from Byakuya's mouth. Fullheart, playing it smart, gently touched Byakuya's cheek, promising to bring her sweets next time, then turned to Mira asking if that was the feeling. Mira was furious, having never touched the magical girl's cheek himself. While buying drinks, Fullheart remarked that the magical girl seemed quite indifferent. Mira couldn't help but feel smug, since only to him did Byakuya show a relaxed expression or attempt to converse. On the way back, Mira threw another ball and hurried Fullheart to fetch it, though he still held it in his hand. This allowed Mira to spend time alone with Byakuya. Mira was actually a bit jealous of Full Heart. To comfort him, Byakuya said she was very happy today because she met the strategist's friend and learned his name, gaining more insight into Mira. As Mira was about to touch Byakuya's uplifted face, Full Heart interrupted, holding a rabbit in his arms, prompting Mira to once again contemplate eliminating this colleague. Are all magical girl mascots such beasts? The mascot drinks heavily at home every day, bosses Byakuya around relentlessly, and Byakuya hardly ever resists. She only refuses when absurd demands are made, like when the mascot wanted to grope her. She's a girl who rarely fights back, so the mascot becomes even more outrageous. One day, the evil organization is active again, and the mascot pulls Byakuya out of the closet, urging her to hurry off. Meanwhile, Mira is considering a gift for Byakuya. Suddenly, a subordinate suggests giving him a surprise and takes Mira to the dungeon, where Mira sees a shocking scene. Byakuya, bound and pitifully calling his name. The subordinates excitedly urge their leader to interrogate her. The next second, they are all beaten up by Mira. To punish the enemy, he assaults his teammates, then corners Byakuya. Because the dungeon is monitored, Mira cannot lose control as usual. He contemplates how to logically let Byakuya go. Snapped back to reality, he sees the scene. It's unbearable. Byakuya adds fuel to the fire, saying she needs the restroom. Mira feels a strange thrill, whispers for her to endure a bit longer. Byakuya worries about causing trouble for her superior. Mira asks if she truly wants to be interrogated. Unexpectedly, Byakuya says she's prepared, willing to let Mira do as he pleases, and Mira loses control again. Byakuya, thinking not to dirty the room, pleads to use the restroom first, making Mira enjoy it more. Then, colleague Full Heart breaks the tension, having found the ball Mira had thrown. Realizing Byakuya is tied up, he imagines inappropriate scenarios. Surprised at the leader's character, he reminds Mira to be gentle before swiftly exiting and closing the door. Mira takes this chance to enjoy, misleadingly pinching Byakuya's chin and turning off the surveillance camera. The staff in the control room only hear magical girl's pained moans, but Mira is just tickling her. He tells Byakuya she can pretend to faint, and he'll free her. Disappointed by her initially defeated attitude, as she could expect more, Byakuya actually faints, recalling her childhood in the orphanage, where she was often left last and used to not making demands. But Mira tells her she can expect more. Upon waking, she finds herself in her own room, with Mira kneeling beside her. He asks why she didn't mention her lack of oxygen. Byakuya thought she could endure. Mira stands to leave, warning that he can't cover for her if it happens again. Byakuya, prepared for such outcomes, disappoints Mira even more. Unable to hold back, he shouts at her, but seeing her trembling, his heart softens, repeatedly saying, "I'm really leaving now." After several repeats, Byakuya bravely expresses her true desire, wishing for him to stay. Mira complies, sitting back on the magical girl's bed. At the same time, the mascot lies disheveled in an alley, his colleague appearing with another magical girl, declaring Byakuya unqualified, and this girl as the true magical girl. A new magical girl has appeared. She looks innocent but was seen drinking coffee with her envoy on a fresh morning after rain. However, after just one sip, she started giving the middle finger crazily and swearing profusely, even biting her envoy. This magical girl, named Supaku, is the complete opposite of Byakuya, a wealthy heiress whose envoy is a birdman. The birdman is gentle with Supaku, but she is very shy and often resorts to physical attacks to express her emotions. Sensing danger, the birdman alerts her, and Supaku transforms and rushes to the battlefield. Below, a group of evil organization members are chasing a child, but it seems the child is winning. Adults watching the scene pull out their phones to record the strange, staff-wielding girl. Infuriating Supaku, who throws her staff away, puts on brass knuckles, and starts beating the members while shouting defiant phrases. Turns out, she is a magical girl who specializes in physical attacks. At night, Supaku is on a building's rooftop, still shouting aggressively, when Mira personally steps in and defeats her with a powerful move. The birdman doesn't even have time to intervene. Afterward, Mira reflects deeply, realizing he has killed a magical girl, potentially ending his relationship with Byakuya. That day, Byakuya waits in vain for Mira. Meanwhile, Supaku suddenly wakes up in her own bed, saved by the birdman who blames himself for putting her in danger. he decides to reveal everything to her. He is an angel sent from heaven to deliver divine messages, selecting pure girls among humans to bestow magical powers upon. He believes in his choice of Supaku as the most talented. Supaku learns she is not unique, but resolves to continue being a magical girl to save the world. Moved, the Birdman holds her hand, promising to fight alongside her. Byakuya hadn't seen Mira for several days and couldn't help missing him deeply. Mira felt the same, and recently, his subordinates dared not act foolishly in front of him. Suddenly, Fullheart returned, claiming he had found the ball and asked if he could keep a small kangaroo at the organization. Mira, already irritated and concerned for Fullheart's safety, had his subordinates quickly pull him away. Unable to work under these conditions, Mira decided to meet Byakuya and face judgment, expecting Byakuya to suggest ending their relationship. However, Byakuya expressed his concern for Mira, prompting Mira to confess that he had killed one of Byakuya's magical girl companions. Byakuya was confused, asking, "I have companions?" It turned out she had no interaction with other magical girls and was simply feeling the weight of tough times. Hearing Byakuya wasn't upset, Mira felt there might be hope for him yet. But then Byakuya asked if he was heartless, as her first reaction had been relief that Mr. Mira was safe. Mira couldn't hold back and hugged Byakuya, overwhelmed by emotions. While they were intimately engaged, Supaku suddenly appeared again, and to Mira's surprise, Byakuya knew her. They had been classmates in elementary school. However, Byakuya hid upon seeing her, frightened by Supaku's odd way of showing affection, biting her because of her fondness. Supaku, still behaving the same way, dropped her staff and charged. Then the Birdman appeared, scolding Byakuya for being unworthy of being a magical girl, proclaiming only Supaku deserved that title. Hearing she was being fired, Byakuya quickly resorted to pleasantries, apologizing for not being helpful and expressing her intent to apply what she learned at work to improve herself. Still liking her job, she asked for a reason, which led the Birdman to question if she had fallen for that man. Byakuya blushed, and Mira's brain short-circuited, unable to process the comment. The Birdman gave Byakuya two choices, either ally with Mira or openly fight evil alongside Supaku. Would she choose the gentle and handsome Mr. Mira, who always brought her gifts, or Supaku, who physically attacked her every time? Hesitating even a second would be disrespectful to those little cakes. Naturally, Byakuya chose Mira. However, Supaku didn't understand why Byakuya had to give up being a magical girl. What were they really fighting to protect? Wasn't it love? Now the Birdman was trying to separate them, which seemed completely backwards. Hearing Supaku's reprimand, the Birdman had a realization. He had always focused on his mission, neglecting what was truly important. Indeed, he had it backwards. Luckily, Supaku had now enlightened him. Still, he did not approve of Byakuya. She needed to prove to him that she was not Supaku's enemy and demonstrate her love. Afterward, Mira took Byakuya home, intentionally suggesting that their discussion had been a misunderstanding, hoping Byakuya would clarify that it wasn't. But his comment made shy Byakuya unsure of what to say, only able to ask Mira, "Was it a misunderstanding?" Mira couldn't calm down. Was it really not a misunderstanding? It seemed neither of them would sleep well that night. Meanwhile, the Birdman and Byakuya's mascot returned to the heavens. To their surprise, upon arriving, two quirky creatures transformed into handsome men. Byakuya and Mira resumed their usual dating routine. The mascot hadn't returned for a few days, so Byakuya brought Mira to her home. To an outsider, it might seem suspect, but they were just playing homemade Go. When the mascot returned, it found this scene excessive. It had turned a blind eye when they were outside, but now they were getting cozy at home. Soon after, the Birdman also arrived. Seeing Byakuya and Mira, he thought the magical girl was held captive in a cramped, dilapidated place that might collapse at any moment. Byakuya informed him that it was her home, and his comment was quite rude. The Birdman was surprised that anyone would live in such a place, noting that even Supaku's storage room was larger. Then, speaking of the devil, Supaku arrived. She energetically attacked Byakuya physically. Upon hearing this, was the Birdman's magical girl, the mascot realized. So you have a serious thing for young girls. The two started arguing. Meanwhile, Mira quietly gathered information, listening to the two mascots boast about their magical girls, which provided no useful information. Finally, the Birdman delivered a killer statement, calling Byakuya expressionless. Mira disagreed, noting that while Byakuya rarely showed expressions, she was kind to everyone and not trustworthy in that regard. At this moment, Supaku spoke up seriously, striking the mascots' souls. What right do you have to judge the worth of girls? Byakuya was doing the accounting at home when Jamao came back and told him about a good job opportunity as a server in a shabu-shabu restaurant. The only requirement was not to wear underwear. Byakuya was puzzled and asked, "What does not wearing underwear have to do with serving food?" Jamao started to trick her, saying, "Everyone is not wearing any, only you are. It would actually be weird if you did." He tried to change Byakuya's perception and even touched her buttocks directly. Byakuya naturally refused. Jamao felt it didn't matter since she had often been groped by that man. Upon hearing the word groped, Byakuya took out a side dish from the fridge that had been soaked and kneaded in water, which they had for dinner. After all, they didn't have much money left this month, and the expenses were all due to Jamao's spending. As Christmas Eve approached, Mira started to think about what Christmas gift to give Byakuya. Two colleagues gathered around him to help with suggestions, curious to know who Mira's mysterious girlfriend was. Then, another colleague, Bella, came over. Bella, who often fantasized weirdly about her colleagues and was secretly in love with Mira, mistakenly thought she was the girlfriend Mira was buying a gift for when she heard them talking. The colleagues told Mira that different gifts have different meanings. Like lipsticks imply a desire to kiss, necklaces mean wanting to keep someone close, and clothes suggest wanting her to strip. As they discussed, Bella fantasized about Mira giving all those gifts to her, pinning her down on the bed, wanting to have her in every way. Overwhelmed, she ran away yelling, "Pervert with glasses." Meanwhile, spurred by his colleagues, Mira decided to make an appointment with Byakuya. At that moment, Byakuya was shopping with Jamao when they encountered Supaku and a bird. Supaku, excited to see Byakuya, pounced on her and began to bite her fiercely. She also planned to give Byakuya homemade sweets for Christmas. Comparing her to Jamao and Byakuya, one could see the difference. "I didn't come here to shop, but to collect free tofu residue and bread crusts." So Byakuya said he would also make snacks from bread crusts for Supaku. Supaku started chirping happily again, while Jamao and the bird began comparing their magical girls. Jamao took the lead by saying, "Although Byakuya's cooking is simple, she always shows such an expression when eating." The bird couldn't stand it anymore and told him to shut up. It was Supaku who stepped in to teach them that the most important thing in cooking is the intention. Only when the cook and the eater trust each other can the emotions contained in the food be felt. So, there should be no competition from the start. The bird took this lesson to heart, and Supaku comforted him by stroking his head while continuing to chirp happily. Byakuya was also inspired and couldn't wait to see Mira in the evening, wearing a mascot costume and even tripping. Mira picked up the fallen head and asked why she came before finishing work. Byakuya said that even if it was just for a little while, she wanted to see the strategist as soon as possible. Mira got so excited she almost plucked the rabbit head bald, then directly asked Byakuya about her plans for Christmas. Byakuya still had to work since the hourly wage is high during Christmas. Seeing Mira's disappointment, Byakuya quickly added that she should be able to find some free time in the evening and asked if Mira was available afterward. Mira, still posing, said, "Although I'm quite busy since it's you, my archenemy, asking, I guess I have no choice." Byakuya then gathered her courage and invited Mira to have dinner together, as she wanted to spend Christmas with the strategist. Mira's glasses shattered again. Spend Christmas together, what does she mean by that? We are clearly enemies. Still, Mira wouldn't miss this opportunity, especially after hearing Byakuya say she wanted to have dinner and spend a leisurely time at home together. Mira just couldn't resist. On Christmas Day, Byakuya dressed as Santa Claus to sell gifts. Mira came specifically to pick her up and brought her a bouquet of flowers. To help Byakuya get off work early, he bought all the remaining cakes with his black card, treating it as a bonus for his subordinates. On the way home, Byakuya also bought some groceries. To Mira, this felt just like a newlywed couple's life. After shopping, they even went for a lottery draw, where Mira hoped to win the top prize of rice but only ended up with a pack of tissues. Mira then used his black card to threaten the clerk, insisting on continuing until he won a top prize. However, Byakuya was already satisfied since tissues have a long shelf life. Once home, Byakuya put on an apron to start cooking. Byakuya in an apron still looked the cutest to Mira, who rolled up his sleeves to help. Byakuya planned to make candied carrots and hamburgers, with patties shaped like a heart and a star made the night before. Noticing Mira saw the shapes, Byakuya's face turned red. Mira couldn't keep calm, trying to convince himself that the heart shape was just a regular mark. Byakuya began frying the hamburgers. Together they shopped and cooked, spending such peaceful time together, truly like a newlywed couple. Mira's glasses shattered again. Dinner time arrived, a moment to decide Mira's fate. Star or heart? It was the heart. Even if Byakuya meant nothing by it, Mira was ready to read into it. The hamburger was juicy and delicious, the best Mira had ever tasted. The carrots they cooked together were also tasty. After a fulfilling meal, Mira helped wash the dishes, and then they had tea together. Mira asked Byakuya if there was anything she wanted, as a thank you for the meal. Blushing, Byakuya expressed her wish for him to call her by her first name. This was almost a clear hint. Mira's glasses shattered once again. This magical girl was too terrifying, eroding his will to fight, and now aiming to destroy his rationality. Now only one thought remained in his mind. My wife is so cute. So Mira blushed and called out Byakuya's name, also hoping to hear Byakuya call him by his first name. Today, they were not a magical girl and an evil strategist. Byakuya also blushed and called him Mr. Mira. They kept calling each other's names until Scrapper Cat couldn't take it anymore and slapped them both, telling them to stop flirting. As soon as he entered, he found them lost in their own world, not even noticing his return. Angrily, Scrapper demanded food from Byakuya, who gave him a hamburger. Mira had just calmed down, but seeing that the hamburger in Scrapper's plate wasn't heart-shaped, got excited again. Soon after, Birdbro and Supaku arrived, with Supaku hugging Byakuya and starting to nibble. Meanwhile, the evil organization also held a Christmas party, feasting on the cakes Mira had brought back. The boss of the organization remarked how thoughtful it was to reward everyone with gifts, praising Mira for being clever. Little did he know it was just Mira trying to lighten his wife's burden. However, some members were disgruntled and were quickly silenced by Fullheart with a Christmas hat. At Byakuya's place, Scrapper and Birdbro had already passed out drunk. Byakuya walked Mira out, and to their surprise, it started snowing outside. Mira personally tied a scarf around Byakuya and wished her a Merry Christmas, Miss Byakuya. Byakuya's daily routine starts with making breakfast for two. Then, she wakes up the lazy cat. Just as she was about to continue with the major cleaning, the lazy cat calls her to a meeting. Today, Byakuya sports twin ponytails, unsure if Mira will get to see them. The meeting's agenda is to enhance the magical girl features of Byakuya. Each time Byakuya talks back, the lazy cat roughly pinches her cheeks. First, the lazy cat demonstrates a new entrance move and catchphrase, which Byakuya finds too embarrassing to perform. However, under threat, she complies. Next is a costume redesign, tailored to the lazy cat's bad taste, opting for the least fabric possible, which Byakuya disagrees with. The lazy cat then hugs and roughs her up, praising only her looks and obedient nature. Byakuya struggles and cries out for help, naively turning to her enemy. Meanwhile, an evil organization holds an emergency meeting about the agenda for their 17th annual gathering. Most members are reluctant, except for Fullheart, who is overly excited. The annual meeting is merely a cover. The real purpose is to amuse the king of evil. Until the king is satisfied, they remain his playthings, draining their dignity and bodies. Mira, who always presents things positively, only handles the organization and never participates. This year, he has planned the same No Laughing Evil organization, a name that brings painful memories to everyone. Any slight smile results in severe punishment. Only two people are happy: Mira, the referee, and Fullheart, part of the team that tries to make others laugh. Everyone strongly opposes, except for Bella, who firmly supports Mira. However, fearing the king might get bored, Fullheart suggests Mira participate this year, only to be dismissed with a thrown ball. Seeing the general dislike, the understanding Mira suggests they could propose other ideas, as long as there's enough time to prepare. Finally, a silent elder raises his hand and slowly suggests slime sumo, proving that the older ones still know how to have fun. On one side, Byakuya is out working a part-time job while the lazy cat rests at home. On her way back, Byakuya buys ingredients for dinner. The lazy cat continues to rest. When she gets home, she does a major cleaning. The lazy cat is still resting. When it wakes up, Byakuya has just finished cleaning, and the lazy cat takes her to a bathhouse. Coming out of the bathhouse, the lazy cat turns into a strikingly handsome man, and even gives Byakuya a bottle of milk on the way home. To thank him for his rare kindness, Byakuya decides to make buckwheat noodles for dinner. During the meal, the lazy cat curiously asks her about living with a man. Unbeknownst to him, Byakuya doesn't even see him as a man, but rather as family. Instead of being touched, the lazy cat complains that the noodles are too bland. That's how the day ends. Byakuya's house is very old and haunted, which has her huddled in her bed covers at night, too scared to move. Meanwhile, Mira is oblivious to this, engaged in playing a psychological test with colleagues. The test reveals that love was the only mistake in his otherwise perfect life. His colleagues even suspect him of being obsessed with magical girls. When Bella joins, she too takes the test. Asked what she would say after crash landing on a planet in her spaceship, Bella responds, "I thought I was going to die," while Mira says, "Well, it's just the beginning." A male colleague, trying to impress a female colleague, says he would want to be with her if they were stranded. Witnessing this public display of affection, Mira can't stand it and goes to find Byakuya with a cake. But Byakuya is late coming out, and Mira waits from noon until evening, with everyone else leaving the park, comforting himself that they hadn't agreed to meet daily. However, to prevent the magical girl from secretly planning tactics, he decides to check on her in person. As soon as he arrives, he sees Byakuya crouching at the doorway. Upon seeing him, she rushes into his arms, continuously calling him Mr. Advisor. Wondering if this is a new attack tactic by the magical girl, he finds it too effective. Yet the real move comes when Byakuya tearfully says she missed him and is happy he came. Mira was hit hard by the situation. He took 2 deep breaths before realizing Byakuya was trembling all over. He thought the lazy cat had done something despicable again. Surprisingly, it was because the lazy cat was not there. Byakuya tearfully asked him to stay the night, which sounded like a different kind of invitation to Mira. He couldn't help but confirm with Byakuya, "You've decided to give up everything, right?" He thought Byakuya was choosing to abandon her mission to be with him, but it turned out she just didn't dare to stay alone in her haunted room. The ghost had always been there, but Byakuya had ignored it, as long as it didn't harm her directly. Recently, however, the ghost had been noisy at night, demanding something returned to it, keeping Byakuya awake for several nights. She hadn't moved because the place was cheap. Mira wished Byakuya would move to a bright, spacious house where she would greet him in an apron, asking if he wanted to eat dinner or eat me first, but he immediately dismissed the thought, questioning how he could be happy alone. Byakuya admitted she hadn't believed in ghosts before, but since meeting Mira, she didn't want to deny the existence of evil lieutenants and suddenly feared many things. Mira could hardly withstand such attacks. Knowing the lazy cat wouldn't return that night meant he would be alone with Byakuya. He doubted he could resist. Just then, Byakuya hugged him, saying she heard strange noises. Mira also heard the sounds of his dignity and various other things shattering. At this point, they decided to sleep. They lay together on the only bed available. Byakuya, unable to resist, tugged at his shirt. Mira couldn't sleep and heard Byakuya thanking him, asking if she was too dependent on him. Mira sat up in bed and told her it wasn't enough. Just as he was about to say something more daring, Byakuya had already fallen asleep. Looking at the magical girl's gentle sleeping face, Mira forgot what he wanted to say and just guarded her as he fell asleep. The next day, the lazy cat returned and purified the house with holy power. The reason he hadn't done so before was that he wanted to move to a house with a bath. 4 hours earlier, Mira was the first to get up. He heard Byakuya still calling his name in her dreams, exclaiming, "I can't take it anymore. I really love you. I love you to death." Whenever Mira and Byakuya met, it was always Mira who found Byakuya first. Today, despite being so close, Mira hadn't noticed her yet. Byakuya wanted to surprise him by covering his eyes, but she couldn't reach. She failed to see the surprised expression on the lieutenant's face and felt a bit disappointed. Then she delivered the cheesy lines that the lazy cat had made up for her last time, complete with embarrassing gestures. Mira couldn't help but laugh after seeing her act. His wife was really cute. His laughter was like a breath of spring to Byakuya. However, the next second, Mira asked her to do it again, repeating this request 3 times. Byakuya finally realized something was amiss. Indeed, the lieutenant could be quite naughty sometimes. Despite his gentleness, he made her do many embarrassing things. Mira was charmed again. He asked Byakuya if she knew any magic. Byakuya recalled the lazy cat teaching her a spell that could turn her misfortune into happiness, called Happiness Transformation, but it required becoming unfortunate first. After explaining, the lazy cat had left Byakuya in a training facility. Byakuya quickly stopped reminiscing and showed Mira the magic, asking him to do things that would make her unfortunate, like pinching her face or tickling her. To Mira, this was simply a reward. In the end, neither felt unfortunate. Both were bubbling with happiness. Mira, known as a brilliant strategist of an evil organization, was famous for his ruthless heart. However, very few knew his true nature. For instance, every time he brought Byakuya desserts, he carefully selected them. Previously, he was always eager to find Byakuya first, but today, he pretended not to see her. Byakuya, having masked her presence, approached him stealthily. Just as he expected to be blindfolded, he overlooked the fact that Byakuya wasn't tall enough to reach his eyes, but this was too cute. Then Byakuya again performed her cheesy lines. Seeing his beloved doing such cute yet embarrassing gestures, Mira's heart bubbled with pink joy. It was so fun. He really wanted to make her happy. This was important information about the magical girl, so he had to savor every moment, thus asking Byakuya to repeat it over and over. Hearing Byakuya call herself mischievous, Mira became even more excited and wanted her to do more embarrassing things. They then talked about the magic Byakuya knew. She showed him the happiness transformation and asked him to do things that would make her unfortunate. Mira couldn't refuse such requests. Touching Byakuya's cheeks felt like squeezing marshmallows, so white and soft. Then he also pinched her waist. Byakuya, ticklish, couldn't help but tremble. Mira felt that before the magic could take effect, something else might start first. He quickly ended the embarrassing magic display and took Byakuya home. Byakuya admitted that the magic was hard to perform for him because she really liked the feeling of his large hands touching her, making it impossible for her to feel unfortunate. Her words struck Mira deeply. Byakuya felt that she was always being cared for by Mira and wanted to do something for him too. After bidding each other farewell and heading home, Mira stopped and looked back at Byakuya. They had both said, "See you tomorrow." Tomorrow seemed so far away, yet the anticipation made it easier to fall asleep tonight without feeling lonely. Moreover, every day spent together filled them both with uncontrollable happiness. The next day, Byakuya left home early. Spring had arrived, and the sky was filled with cherry blossoms. She went to meet her appointment and transformed into a magical girl amidst the cherry blossoms, descending from the sky to pounce on Mira.